There we go. Bye. All right. Good day, everyone. Um, my name's Just Joe. Sorry for the delay here. This is my first time doing a live production, and so it had some technical delays that I was not. Well, I should have prepared a little better, but I didn't. So here we are. Um, Again, my name is Just Joe, and welcome to the Mother Son Incest Network live. Um, give you a little heads up what we're going to go through today. I'm going to give you just a little bits and pieces of Joe. Let you know why I'm here, what I'm doing it for. I got some exciting news from Liverpool. Shout out to Charlie. Don't know if your energy there gave me some connections. Then we're going to move on to Dr. Mulyatsky's corner. Um, and then we're going to go on to my creation of what I call the maternal enmeshment trauma disorder, and then understanding the boundary violations and their impacts on you. And then what I call is the checklist of what are mother son incest. And so we'll break it down into a covert and an overt list. Um, so, a little bit about myself. This is probably one of the most shameful behaviors on earth, and it's so taboo and never talked about. I wouldn't say never, it's rarely talked about. I was inspired by two passages in the Bible. I'm not just because it was in the Bible from a historical standpoint. Paul wrote in First Corinthians 5, 1 and 2. He called out mother son incest um, back 2,000 years ago. And so this isn't something that's new. What It's kind of a 15-year long path that got me to this point of awakening to understand um, why I'm able to sit up here now and be uncomfortably comfortable talking about this. Um, and it's easier to go backwards than to come forwards. I am a survivor of mother son incest. And to qualify, uh, my most covert behavior that I witnessed or saw and experienced, and then also how it manifested in myself, is that my mother exposed herself to me in the bathtub as a teenager. Um, and I'm able to tell the difference between sexual energy and accidental. Um, so I carried that image of lust in my heart and in my head for nearly 35 years, and my choice of pornography uh, was images that recalled my mother naked in the bathtub, and that's quite shameful to say, but I was a child, right? And I can look back and feel a little more empathy for myself. Um, when you're exposed to it, I mean, I'm just a human, just like anyone else, right? And my mother emancipated me uh, when she did that to me. Um, what has made this comfortable for me to talk about um, is that 15 years ago, I was caught gratefully and for a sex crime and made the paper. And because of the amount of shame that I gathered from that and healing from that shame has helped me to step out of the shadows, even in this regard. And I didn't even really understand nor identify that I had experienced it, really understood the experience uh, less than a year ago. And now, so how I've come to learn about this and recall it, because I have a hypothesis that 80% of the population of sex offenders have experienced a home where incest was present and a mother who, if not actively, was a willing participant. Um, and so, through incarceration and through all of my many years of forced um, group therapy, uh, and then just working and talking with other offenders, because I can talk to them differently than any other therapist, and we can have a conversation that's based on um, reality and not based on what you're being told is going to be reported back to uh, the state, right? I mean, anything you say in those groups can be put on your permanent list, as they so say. And I'll tell you what, being an RSO, a registered sex offender, that's a permanent list. Um, um, and so then I can look back once I understood my own, and I can recall the stories that I've listened to hundreds of men. And there it was, right? Every single one, right? And it wasn't me provoking them. It was just them telling their story, and me having uh, with my mental disability, I, I'm able to store things in different places. I have what most people would call be multiple personality disorder. Dissociative identity disorder is the true name of it. Um, and so I have one that perfect memory. And so I can still sit down and recall the conversations, not with tainting them, just with a new understanding, because I see the world from a different perspective now. And then I got Dr. Maletsky's book, Mother Son Incest, and then it opened my eyes, right? And as she so graciously says, and I'll paraphrase here, right? She thought she picked this as an easy um, thesis because she didn't believe it existed. And I love it. Boy, was I wrong. Um, and not only was her first misconception off, but the scale of it is much larger than anyone would ever imagine. And I don't want to throw numbers at it yet because I want to put some real numbers to it. Um, so hope that gives you a little bit uh, about me that can help. And anytime, any questions or anything like that, I'll be happy to answer them. Um, I got some exciting news from Liverpool, and I wanted to share it with y'all. Um, Charlie, if you had any energy to do with this, thank you very much. Right. Uh, so there is a special edition of sexual violence, um, the society research journal. Um, and so I'm learning how to do research, and I don't have an academic background in that nature. And so we've been back and forth for a couple of times. And here's the email that I got. I'll read it to you. I nearly I did cry. Good morning, Joe. Thank you for your response. Your insight and care in approaching the subject are evident, and it takes strength to explore a complex and often neglected area of harm. You raise interesting points regarding gendered differences in the perpetration of child sexual abuse within the family environment is an area that merits deeper examination. It also is encouraging to hear that you're building a small team and thinking ahead about how the best way to gather and present this work. The potential to create center survivor informed quantitative insights here is powerful, and your sensitivity to the emotional and cultural terrain is exactly what this kind of work needs. That said, I do want to gently highlight that the scope and readiness of your proposed project may not yet be the best fit for this current special issue. These issues often demand a particular structure and academic framing, especially around research design, ethical clearance, and methodology. These can be difficult to achieve without prior academic publishing experience or institutional backing. The the that absolutely does not mean that this work shouldn't be pursued. It should. And your idea of connecting with a doctoral or MSc student for early career research is an excellent. I'm CCing this into our email to the journal editors. Between us, we can have a think about how we might support you and your work moving forward. In terms of sample size or methodology guidance, I'd be glad to offer advice as you move forward. Perhaps we could pen me a short summary of the research questions driving this work, and if needed, we can arrange a quick virtual meeting to discuss virtual. Thank you for reaching out and also for willing to walk in this challenging space. Um, it's one step every day. Um, and some of the work that I never talk about is, and how I've come to learn this is that my work uh, has been primarily with sex offenders. Um, and so I write men who are recently caught or men who are reaching out and um, offer them a way for accountability and recovery and the ultimate goal of healing. Because I say a man at peace harms no one. Um, we're going to go on to the doctor's corner here now. And get a little bit of tea. Thank you, Damo, for suggesting. He wanted me to get a more professional looking cup. I drink a lot of mint tea, and he said this just doesn't look professional on a live video. So I have it over here off to the side to pour it into my professional looking cup. Thank you, Damo. All right, we're going to move on. Like I said, if you haven't gotten this book, get this book. Where are we at? There we go. I have a link on my website. Go to my website. You can get a PDF for $10. It's worth it. It's a lot. It's a lot of scientific research, and so it's not like just the subject matter alone wouldn't make it an easy topic to read. And so I want to go into her chapter number two. Misconception number one: mother-son incest means intercourse. And that is rarely the case. And so I want to say here first, I want to do a disclaimer. Anything that I say here is strictly my opinion. Unless I'm reading it directly from her book, I could misinterpret it. And so this is my perspective on what she wrote, unless, again, like I said, I'm reading it directly. So I'm going to read directly from here what I think is some of the most important parts. But when an adult uses a child for the adult's own sexual and or listen to this one, emotional gratification, most professionals seem to agree that this behavior is defined as misuse. This comes from Banning of 1989. Now, sorry for that. Mother-son incest can, therefore, be defined as inappropriate intimacy and or sexually related contact between the mother and her son. It involves the mother satisfying her own, ready for this one, emotional, physical, or intimacy, and finally, her sexual needs. Krug of 1989. Um, Next line is these behaviors can range from intercourse to innocent, excessive hugging and kissing, um, which may overstimulate and sexually arouse the child. Justice and Justice 1979. Um, did I have anything else here? Let's see. Yeah, nope, that was that. We're moving on to the next page. Sorry here. First time doing this. All right. So what I did from here is I started to put together, and I don't know how to share screens or do anything like that. So I'll put this out someplace where y'all can read it. Um, I do have a What's Up group right now. If you're watching and you want to join, go ahead and send something in the chat or go to my webpage and send me an email. Um, so this is founded on the Oedipus complex, but it is not. This is more because right now the Oedipus is just a theory. And so the point of what they're saying as a theory is that they can't prove that it actually exists. And so what this, what I'm, one of the backhanded, second-handed things that I'm trying to attempt is to prove the Oedipus complex by demonstrating those who successfully get out and those who do not. And this is what I would call those who do not get out of the Oedipus complex, which is the maternal enmeshment trauma disorder. Again, this is my creation. This is not associated with anybody else's work. I'm not claiming it. So I'm like, ooh, go Joe, right? I'm not, I don't want to like pee on anybody else's work. And so, um, maternal enmeshment trauma disorder is a proposed complex trauma condition stemming from persistent developmental, inappropriate emotional and psychological boundary violations by a maternal figure. These may or may not include covert sexual behaviors, but are defined by emotional overreach, infraternalization, dependency reinforcement, and suppression of autonomy and identity formation. Um, so emotional, persistent sense of being stuck in an infantile or adolescent state, inability to establish or sustain any adult identity, autonomy, or intimacy, chronic shame, confusion, or guilt for seeking independence, boundary violations, parentification, and emotional spouseification. Now that is the one that most people that my experience is this is the lower end of MSI, mother son incest. However, saying it's on the lower end does not diminish its impact. Parentification is when a parent turns you into their spouse, um, and that can be emotionally. So if their husband has checked out, um, she then brings in the son to satisfy her own emotional needs instead of having her husband. So she's making her son her husband, which is an emancipation. Um, and the the opposite can also be hold true, and this will be on our next uh, week. I'm gonna be talking about first what is normal development look like at certain age ranges for children, and then what does it look like for children who have been abandoned, right? Where the mother really doesn't want the child, because this holds true for both ends, right? For a mother who has enmeshed herself in her child or completely um, de-enmeshed. I don't know what the hell the word is, but the opposite of that, whatever that is. Um, Enmeshment-based trauma response, anxiety, disassociation, or panic when asserting boundaries, fear of abandonment tied to an early enmeshment caregiving, sexual dysfunction or confusion linked to early emotional overexposure. Um, and then I have some diagnostic criteria and developmental and some treatment and some case studies and stuff like that. So if you'd like a copy of that, I'll figure a way to get that put out there. I do have it, like I said, I do have it in WhatsApp. Um, and so next part is understanding boundary violations and their impact, the survivor's guide to recognizing harm and finding support. I put in here the definition of mother son incest is. This guide helps individuals identify covert and overt boundary violations in childhood and understand their psychological impact. It is a tool for survivors, support workers, and anyone exploring healing from complex relational trauma. Um, Boundary violations in childhood can cause long-term effects. And mine's been a lifelong effects, and I don't believe that um, I'll heal from it, but I'll never get over it, if you want to say. Um, and so that's kind of the difference. And so the healing part is what's able, or is what makes me able to sit down here and with y'all and talk about this. Boundary violations in childhood can cause, like I said, lifetime effects for me, identity and self worth. I had 32 identities, so um, I had no self worth. So I'm I don't know how old I was, maybe 19, 20, 21, and I was in the Navy, and I drove from Charleston, South Carolina to Tampa, Florida nearly every weekend, at least 2 weekends out of every month. 8-hour drive, man. So I stopped in Jacksonville at Lloyd's liquor store, got a 2-liter bottle of Pepsi. They didn't have Coke. So I poured some of it out and I got a fifth of Jim Beam and made sure I didn't have the bottle in the vehicle with me and emptied out both bottles so they all fit into the one Pepsi bottle and filled up at the gas station in there. And somewhere I mean, I know where it's at now. Um, it was 2 hours and I don't remember any of that drive, if you can imagine. And when I woke up, that bottle was empty. Now, to understand the uh, and, and just how much impact my mother had on me is so it appeared, well, it didn't appear. Uh, I had driven my truck about 75 miles an hour underneath another four-wheel drive pickup truck and ended up in Swamp Bayou of Levy County, Florida. And if I hadn't hit him, I would have ended up in the Gulf of Mexico, which was about a quarter of a mile down the road. And if I hadn't hit him, I probably would be dead. So here I am in the swamp. I'm drunk as shit. I just wrecked my vehicle. Um, I get up on to the road finally, and because I had to walk through the swamp, my mom just bought me a brand new pair of shoes, and that's what I was worried about. Is I remember telling the fireman, I'm like, my mom was going to kick my ass because she just bought me these new shoes. Um, that was my first thought with everything that was going on was my mother and her feelings about my shoes. Um, just a funny little story. If not, hope you got something out of it. All right. So the psychological harm scale, low impact 1 to 2, emotional enmeshment, right? Um, this is the parentification, treated as a parent's emotional partner, parent confines in romantic or adult concerns, guilt tripping for independence. Like, so if you want to go out, hang out with your friends and she doesn't have a partner. And so she makes you feel guilty for wanting to go out and hang out with age appropriate people. Um, I say that's on the low scale. I just broke it out into some. So, I mean, these are all, no matter where you fit, I can tell you that they're all equally as damaging to the person. Um, some just take a little more healing than others. Um, Identity confusion. This is My father did this one to me, and uh, my mother. So that my mother not only she brought me in as her partner, but she also uh, didn't want children. So it was really interesting. So when my father would abuse me, her desire not to be a parent would show up. I mean, a lot of today people would call it, what was the word that they would use? Oh, where there's some emotional force keeping the woman there, and it coerce control. That's the word that's used today. And I can tell you, after listening and watching all the stories, there's no coerce control. It sounds good because everyone doesn't want the women to be predators, but sorry to say, one in three, and the numbers are true, right? Rain, 93% of violent sexual crimes are men. I'll never disagree with that in any way, shape, or form. Women aren't violent. Um, Lust gone awry shows up in men with violence. Lust gone awry in women shows up in seduction. Um, and who doesn't like being seduced? I mean, really. Um, so one of the things that my father would do, gender role imposition. He enjoyed dressing me up in dresses as a little girl. Um, Mocking physical or emotional development. I mean, he did this in front of crowds. Sitting next to me was my mother, and never once did she stand up for me, never once. And so everyone say coerce control. They enjoyed seeing me shamed and in pain, both of them. Um, Inappropriate caregiving beyond childhood, that was there. Elevated impact, sexual exposure, walking parents who walk around naked regularly. Um, Most people would, oh, they're just accidents. No, that shit's not an accident. Um, Watching adult content or behavior. Uh, this was me. My father gave me Playboys at the age of 9, and I became the porn dealer for my neighborhood. Excessive affection that feels confusing. Um, that my mom as well. There was it it was, yeah, it was very isolated and very controlled, and it was weird because there's I can in infancy I can still remember the love of my mom and her singing lullabies. But somewhere along the line, my father got jealous and touched in uncomfortable ways, privacy routinely invaded inappropriate massages or exposure. Um, Both my parents' inappropriate exposures. Um, as a child, we would, as my father would put it, and he jokes about it, right? Is we had to be forced to watch Lawrence Welk, and at the age of 7, here I am having to rub his feet and pick that nasty black wool out between his toes as he starts playing with himself. And I remember this because he wasn't circumcised and I was. And I was always like, well, I remember asking him, why is yours so different than mine? I think that's about the time when he stopped having me massage because I guess I asked somebody else inappropriate, right? And then most severe, pressured or forced into sexual behavior used for others' gratification and subject to severe physical violations. And I am sad to say that I have a check mark in every one of these boxes here. Um, Over my childhood, I don't know what the word is, abandoned, dumped off, given to, didn't want to I'd say 45 to 50 families over a period of 12 to 14 years. Some could be just for the day, some could be for weekends. The worst was for a week when we moved from North Carolina to Florida. My family moved into the house and they sent me to live with another family that lived just blocks away. And so they got the house set up and then they came and got me. I don't remember. And I was quite abused there. And so, statistically wise, that I proved out to be true, right? So I said, I just averaged, there's 49 homes that I went to and 7 homes was abused in. I was used for others' gratification. So my father, he on my interview, if you haven't seen it, I did a 2-hour interview on another show. It's worth watching. I don't want to take everyone's time up here to ramble on about me. Um, he was called the guy, the host called him a widow whisperer. And damn it, that's the best word I could ever imagine for him. He's a Lutheran minister. Um, the Bishop Pedro thinks that he still belongs on the books, and it's amazing. But uh, he had legal guardianship of an 80-year-old widow, and he decided that I needed to take her out to dinner. I'm a 16-year-old young boy who just got his driver's license, and so I would forcefully drive over to her house, Claire's house, and go in, and she'd be all dolled up, um, and give me a kiss on the cheek with that nasty ass bright red lipstick. And then I'd have to drive her to the Italian restaurant. She'd put her hands on my legs. I mean, if I was financially smart, I could have probably played it off and gotten the whole thing for myself and screwed my father over. But it made me sick to my stomach, right? And I just jest about that. Um, some I make some inappropriate jokes because this is some pretty heavy stuff, and sometimes you just gotta bring a little bit of levity to it. So I was raped by my school teacher. I mean, there's just so many different violations that my parents put me through, from funerals to, I mean, you would, if you want to get new people to come to your church, the best place to get them is at a funeral for one of the old widows who just died. So my father would take me as a teenage boy to funerals for all these widows who died, and guess who's at the funeral for the widows that died? All the other widows. And I can tell you, man, all those widows loved a 15, 16-year-old boy to put their hands on. And so my father, I don't know if he still is, but he was the largest contributor from states in the state of Florida for the Lutheran Church. And so after uh, she died, I got out of the military, and he came and brought me the diamond cufflinks from the Claire's dead husband, Ernie. I threw them in the trash. They were probably worth a couple $100, but I just the shame and disgust. All right, let's see where we're at. Got there. All right, we got the checklist. I just wanted to read off a checklist. This is in the book. A shout out again. Go spend the $10. Go get the book. It's a link on my page, www.soffender.com. All right, the covert. Parent confided in you about their romantic or sexual problems. Parent treated you as their emotional partner instead of another adult. You felt responsible for meeting a parent's emotional needs. Parent made comments about your physical attractiveness. Parent made you feel guilty about seeking independence. Parentification of the child. And like I said, this is especially in the single mom um, world, uh, treating the boy as a female, choosing female clothes, ridiculing the son's sexual development, photographing the son for sexual purposes. Actually, my parents would take pictures of me when I would have accidents or do things. So, like when I got beat up one time, they'd take a picture of me then, or when I fell and had an accident. So the pictures I find of me as a kid are all the shitty things that happened to me. Um, Photographing son for sexual purposes, watching your mother have sex, sharing pornographic material, walking around naked, dressing and undressing in front of your son, leaving the bathroom door open, exhibiting seductive behavior, excessive holding, kissing, and caressing. This one kind of made me gag. French kissing, but I'm sure it happens, and I'm sorry if it happened to you, man. Um, Giving the son massages, sleeping in the same bed, and holding child, wiping the son. This one, I've seen this one. Wiping the son's ass until he goes to school. Bathing together, intruding on his privacy, getting dressed, or while masturbating. And so here's the overt. You were touched in a way that made you uncomfortable. A family member exposed themselves to you. You were forced or pressured into sexual acts. You were made to watch sexual acts. Intercourse, that's the one everyone thinks it is. That's only if you've listened to this list so far. That's the only. This is only one. Forcing the boy to have sex with others, using the boy for masturbation purposes, having him perform cunnilingus, masturbating in front of him, performing fellatio on the board, masturbating the boy, fondling and sucking breast. Cool. Think about that one. When does breastfeeding become no longer about breastfeeding? When does it come about sexual gratification for the mother? How do you tell? Um, Coercing boy to have sex with animals and putting things in the boy's anus. Um, it's been a day. I hope y'all got something out of this. Um, just remember, we're not here to shock you. We're here to understand and get this. Find us. Let's get us corralled up. Let's get a voice out there because we need it. We were destroyed as little boys and can't grow up or haven't grown up. So here's to you, all the little boys out there. I see you, man. I really do. Drop me a line.